So here we are again, 3 episodes into the series, and we've already looked at the Gothic revival of the 60s, experienced the bleakness of 70s cinema, and basked in the 80s with both fantasy and folklore delight. So I bet you know what we're covering now. The 20th century is coming to an end. The internet's becoming mainstream for commercial audiences, and soon a hotbed for people to
come together to bitch about movies and share pornography with one another.
So where does that leave Gothic horror in the internet age? We've made it through 3 decades so far in this series, and now it's time for the 90s to show us their top 5 Gothic horror films. Enjoy. We start out with this oddity on our list, Cemetery Man, 1994. Francisco della Morte is a cemetery caretaker in a small Italian town. Alongside his mentally disabled assistant, della Morte grows exhausted of killing the living dead every night. When a young widow catches his eye, though, his pursuit for love and his existential boredom sends him into a world of madness. How did this film make our list for Gothic horror, you may ask? Cemetery Man, or Della Morte dell'Amore, in its original country of Italy, shares a lot of similarities in the Gothic genre. A beautiful love interest who is taken away from the main character, only to return as a zombie, and then later as 2 reincarnated beings, both ending in heartbreak and disaster. The melancholy attitude of Della Morte adds to the Gothic tropes of this film, carrying a very nihilistic attitude to his job. But when love's involved, he's obsessive to the point of mania. Underneath all this dark humor lies a dark psychological drama of one man trying to escape his place in the world, only to realize the world he inhabits is nothing short of real. Let's also not forget this film has the best portrayal of the Angel of Death as well.
Why didn't you just kill the living?
On to our next film on this list, Cronos, 1992. Cronos is the strange duckling for vampire films to come out of the 90s. Much of this can be credited to the film's director, Guillermo del Toro. In his first film, he lays the groundwork for his signature style, mixing Gothic horror with deep and personal storytelling. The monsters are our friends, while humankind shows itself to be the real monster. Why does this film hold this spot on this list? Back to this being a vampire film, it follows the genre tropes in those films, which are birthed from the Gothic drama. The only change to this is the curse of vampirism. An alchemist has created the creatures of the night, essentially. The character of Jesus is a nobleman who, upon tinkering with the Cronos device, accidentally becomes a vampire. This is also where the mythos of your traditional vampire films change. Instead of being the immediate monster, we see Jesus still playing the part of loving and caring grandfather to his granddaughter, holding on to his humanity. But the reliance on the Cronos device worries his granddaughter, who, in part, is the film's heart in the narrative. Cronos injects freshness into the vampire genre in its mythos. Not bad for Guillermo del Toro's first outing, and 10 years down the road, he would add more to the vampire mythos with Blade 2.
Taken by the Headless Horseman, taken back to hell.
Sleepy Hollow, 1999. Who doesn't love a good ghost story? In the tiny village of Sleepy Hollow, the citizens are haunted and slaughtered by the Headless Horseman. Enter Ichabod Crane, a nervous constable with his own demons, to investigate the recent murders and find answers to why the Hessian horseman has returned from the grave. I bet you were wondering when Tim Burton was going to hit on this list. Most moviegoers know Tim Burton's style in filmmaking to be dark and dreary, like an Edgar Allan Poe story. But film historians see this style to be birthed from the German Expressionism movement in the early 1920s. What makes this film take this spot on our list? Sleepy Hollow is everything made for Gothic horror enthusiasts. Science versus the supernatural, the conscious and unconscious at war over the masses, with greed, corruption, and revenge at the rotten core. We've already established how Burton's work builds from the German Expressionistic movement. The world of Sleepy Hollow feels like a nightmare from a twisted mind. There is a trance to it that also makes you feel comfortable to be in this world as well. Lastly, Johnny Depp's performance as Ichabod Crane can't go unnoticed. Switching from a teacher with a love for ghost stories to a skeptic constable really works for this adaptation. Add in the trauma from his childhood with his mother being persecuted for witchcraft, you understand the character's battle against the paranormal, all the while somewhat fascinated with it. If you're looking for a fun ghost story that delivers on its scare and gothic atmosphere, this is the film for you.
Is that what you believe?
Interview with the Vampire, 1994. If De la Morte de la Mort didn't fulfill your melancholy hit on our list yet, then how about the first entry in the Vampire Chronicles? Born as an 18th century lord turned vampire, Louis Dupont de Lac shares his story with an eager biographer about his tumultuous relationship with the vampire Lestat before fleeing to Paris. That's at least the gist of it. It's kind of hard to tell a complete 300 plus page novel in only a 2-hour or so gothic horror drama. How did the film claim the second spot on our list? Interview with the Vampire marries gothic horror with the gothic romance genre, giving us a tale about one man holding on to the last vestiges of his humanity. Loneliness drives the plot for Louis as he makes several mistakes, two being becoming the partner to the abusive Lestat, and the other turning a young child, Claudia, into a vampire so she can evade death from the plague. As Louis builds his immortal family, he finds that even in numbers, he's still alone in this world. The story of Interview with a Vampire is vast in scope. The screenplay was written by film author Anne Rice, with Neil Jordan directing the film. Yes, that Neil Jordan, who in our top 10 gothic horror films of the 1980s, took the number one spot with The Company of Wolves. Before we get to our number one pick, here are the runner-ups to our list.
What did you do to him?
Better you had asked what he has done to me.
Mary Riley is a retelling of the strange case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, told through the perspective of a housemaid who falls in love for the doctor. I've never heard of this film before until researching it, and was surprised by the collection of great actors involved: John Malkovich, Julia Roberts, Glenn Close, and Sir Michael Gambon. A woman goes to an island where her deceased father had funded a monastery. Dark Waters is another odd duckling that mixes gothic horror with Lovecraftian vibes. Our heroine's journey leads her through a surreal and atmospheric nightmare.
Your journal.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was close to making our list, but where its shortcomings come into being too much of an exact adaptation. I find moments of the film where I could either live without it or maybe it needed more spark. It's still a good movie, but not good enough to make our list. If you were a teen in the 90s, chances are you watched this movie. The craft explored themes of female empowerment in teens, the dangers of unchecked power, and the complexities of relationships through the gothic lens. This film's standout character, Nancy Down, played by Fairuza Balk, was not only etched in goth culture, but in cinema as well. The Crow is the personification for the most gothic film of the 90s, aesthetics-wise. While we all remember the movie fondly for Brandon Lee, looking past the real-life tragedy, it blends gothic horror well with the action genre, making it a tragedy with, again, very strong gothic aesthetics. This one was really close to making our list.
Victims, aren't we all?
In our first pick for the top 5 gothic horror films of the 90s, Bram Stoker's Dracula, 1992. Count Dracula is condemned to live for an eternity off the blood of his victims. Over 400 years later, he leaves his castle for London, where he finds what he believes is the reincarnation of his lost Elisabetta and Mina Harker. Francis Ford Coppola brings together the horror and the romance of Gothic fiction and marries them beautifully in what I deem as the greatest adaptation of Dracula. Everything from the sets to the costumes feels real and appropriate for the time shown in this film. So how does this film claim the top of our rankings? When looking at past Dracula films and the new ones today, nothing touches on what the 1992 classic did. Melding together the history of Vlad the Impaler with that of Stoker's mythology gives us a monster to root for. A man who felt betrayed by his god and in turn became one himself. The performances of Gary Oldman's Count Dracula was also a passing of the torch. One where everyone back then knew either Bela Lugosi or Christopher Lee. Oldman's performance sticks and ages well. A tragedy wrapped in gothic drama and horror. What did you think of our rankings? Did any of your favorites make the list? If not, share your picks down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to see more of our videos. Thank you for watching.